doctor, seeking to get an opportunity into psychiatry training here in the UK, like you actually have an aspiration to become a psychiatrist, then I think this video is for you, because in this video today, I'm going to be sharing about the pathways by which you can actually become a psychiatrist in the UK, and with emphasis on another pathway through which you can actually become a psychiatrist without going through the MSRA exams pathway. So if this is something that interests you, then you want to wait till the end of this video. So let's just get right into it. Hello, my name is Blessing. I'm a doctor currently practicing in the UK, and on this channel I share about my journey as a doctor in training. I also talk about my life generally as an immigrant living here in the UK. I share content about health and wellness. So if today is your first time here, I want to say you're welcome to join us, and feel free to become a part of the community. We want you to be a part of us, so just tap on that subscribe icon and become a part of us. So without further ado, let me just jump right into the video already. Okay, so to start with, I think I need to explain that psychiatry training here in the UK is for 6 years. So this 6 years is divided into 3 years. The first 3 years is what is called a core psychiatry training, and the remaining 3 years, or the last 3 years, is called the higher specialty training. And this is how it is for a lot of other specialties, usually in this category. However, the duration might be different for either the core training or the higher specialty training. So but basically we're just going to be talking about psychiatry here today. So for the core psychiatry training, for a locally trained doctor, of course, after your foundation year, you want to sit for your MSRA, and then through your MSRA you get into core psychiatry training. And for an IMG, you want to sit for your PLAB 1 PLAB 2 exam, you become GMC licensed, become GMC registered, and then for some persons, they come into the UK, start with a trust grade job, and then later they're able to sit for their MSRA, and then they're able to get into specialty training. While for some persons, after their PLAB 2 exam, they just go ahead and sit for their MSRA. And truly, I understand that in recent time, MSRA has become quite competitive, and even for the last exam, I heard that you needed to score like some really crazily high scores for you to get into psychiatry training. So it has become quite competitive, unlike what it used to be a few years ago. So going through the MSRA pathway means that you're coming in for the core psychiatry training, which is for the first 3 years. So when you come in for the first 3 years, you do your core psychiatry training, you meet all the requirements for your ARCP, and you pass all of your Royal College of Psychiatry exams, and afterwards you apply for your higher specialty training. And based on the specialty that you want to specialize in, like the particular specialty, subspecialty, then you're going to do your application, and then all of that is going to be done through orals, and then you go through the whole application process, and then if you're offered a slot, and then you start your higher training for another 3 years, after which you get CCT'd, which is more like you get a certificate of completion of training. So that's usually the pathway. There is actually another pathway through which you can actually become a psychiatrist, and I know that, and that pathway is through the higher specialty training. So you don't necessarily have to have a core psychiatry training here in the UK to be able to proceed to the higher training. So you can actually start with the higher specialty training here in the UK. So, but then the criteria is quite different, because the Royal College wants to be sure that you have met or you have achieved all the competencies that is expected of a higher trainee. So more like all the competencies that those who went through the core psychiatry training have been able to achieve in their first 3 years. The Royal College wants to ensure that you have achieved it in order for you to be eligible for higher training. But I remember I made a video recently where I was talking about the fact that the PLAB UKMLA pathway may not I was talking about some of the challenges and why it is becoming more and more difficult for IMGs to actually come into the UK through the PLAB UKMLA pathway. And one of the advice I suggested was that if it's possible to actually start residency training in your home country, and that is where that advice comes into play. So if you have been able to start your residency training in psychiatry back home where you are, I'll just use Nigeria as example. So the total psychiatry training in Nigeria, I think, is for about 5 years. So I think by the time you be sitting for your exams, you should probably have completed, like, so sitting for your part 1 exam is like you have completed your core psychiatry competencies, before you are permitted to sit for the exam. That's more like an equivalent of it. So more like you should have achieved all the competencies that a core psychiatry trainee here in the UK should have achieved by the time you are sitting for your paper one back home in Nigeria. So usually after the paper one, then a lot of guys who have passed the exam should have met those competencies, and so they can easily cross over. They can apply for the higher specialty training here, and then they finish the rest of their training here in the UK. Now the other way you can go about it is, maybe for example you're already in the UK, but maybe you have been working as a trust grade doctor, not a trainee in psychiatry. So what is really required is, at least for you to be able to sit for the final MSRA Psych exam, which is called CAS, you need to have at least 2 full years of psychiatry experience. So that is why somebody who is back home in Nigeria can sit for the CAS exam. The moment you have been able to achieve up to 2 years of full psychiatry experience, then you can sit for the CAS exam. So if you have been like a trust grade doctor in psychiatry for like 2 years, and you have had full 2 years of psychiatry experience here in the UK, then you can actually sit for the CAS exam. Now for you to sit for the CAS exam, you must have passed your paper A and paper B. So if you have passed your paper, so in the period of those 2 years, you can prepare for your paper A, paper B, and then if you're able to pass those two, then after you get the 2 years experience in psychiatry, then you sit for your CAS. So hopefully that rounds it up to about maybe 2.5 years or maybe 3 years, depending on when you're able to pass the exams, because passing your exams is actually a major requirement for you to be able to qualify for higher training. So even if you go through the core psychiatry training pathway, you need to pass all of your exams before you can apply for the higher training. So whether you're going through the core psychiatry training, or you want to just go through the trust grade route into the higher training, or you're an IMG who is training back home in your country, one of the major criteria to be able to apply for the ST4 or higher training is to pass all of your Royal College of Psychiatry exams. So so as a trust grade, if you are now able to pass your CAS exam with your 2 years of psychiatry experience, and since you have been working in psychiatry, you are able to provide evidence that you have achieved all of the competencies that is required for that level, for that grade of, for your year or for your grade. There are some forms that you will have to do. All of that is present on the Royal College. So I think I want to say at this point that if you need more information about this discussion, then you should check the Royal College of Psychiatry website. You will see more detailed information. So there are forms that you actually fill, and on that form it has your details and the competencies that is expected of you, and those who are going to sign these competencies for you. Of course, they should be like your consultants, those that you have worked with. Something a bit similar to like your CREST form. Just like CREST form is an evidence that you have achieved all your foundation year competencies, that's just the same way this particular form is also an evidence that you have achieved all the competencies that a core psychiatry trainee from year 1 to year 3 would have achieved. Then all the other eligibility criteria, your GMC license, your English, test of English, especially if you're an immigrant, doctor, and all of that, and every other thing that is required is all in the all on their website. Then you can be able to apply for the higher training. Now the reason I'm talking about it is actually because recently, I also did not know until recently when I met a friend who is considering taking that pathway. So he's had some experience of working as a trust grade doctor in psychiatry, and then he doesn't want to sit for the MSRA and go through the core training pathway. So he wants to go for the higher training pathway. So he is already sitting for his exams, and then he's hoping that by the time he passes his CAS, he would have met all the competencies that is expected for his level of training, and then it can be able to progress for a higher training. And recently I also got to know that there are so many other persons who did not even know, especially IMGs, that this pathway is actually possible. So you don't necessarily have to write the MSRA in order to become a psychiatrist here in the UK, and you don't have to be in the UK you don't have to like be in the UK in order to come in for higher training. You can actually start your training or your residency back home in your home country. You just ensure that you're able to provide all the evidence and meet all of the eligibility criteria for you to be able to apply for the ST4. And if your application goes well, then you're likely going to get. So I know about 3 doctors who actually came from Nigeria, and to start their higher training here in the UK. Peradventure you're looking forward to becoming a psychiatrist here in the UK, and maybe you're struggling with the MSRA, pathway or the MSRA option, then this is actually another option that you can consider working towards, whether you are still in your home country or you're already here in the UK. So peradventure you're not in psychiatry and you're considering going into psychiatry, just try to look for a trust grade job in psychiatry, and then that way you're just able to switch from whatever specialty you currently are in to psychiatry. And so that gives you the opportunity to be able to have psychiatry exposure, psychiatry experience, to be able to sit for your exams and all of that. So I hope this video has been able to help you, and if you have any further questions, please feel free to like, and peradventure you have taken this pathway, and feel free to actually tell us about it. You can share in the comment section, but I'm going to be leaving the link to the website within this video so that you can have access to, so that you can be able to check the website for even further information to be able to help you if you're choosing to go through this pathway. So till I see you again, take care, bye.